Sometimes in the entertainment industry, a career isn't built on talent, merit, or even a basic level of competence. What matters more are the boxes that person ticks, the opinions they hold on fashionable subjects, and more often than not who they know rather than what they know. When something that is so hollow is stacked like a rigged game of Jenga, it's not a question of if it will collapse, but when. In what felt like a social experiment disguised as a career path, a bizarre test to see what happens when you give creative control to someone with absolutely none of the necessary qualifications, we arrive of course at Leslye Headland.
Now that's a name I've not heard in a long time. A long time.
I can't do this video about Leslye Headland and not mention the fact that she spent several years working at Miramax as Harvey Weinstein's personal assistant. After graduating from New York University's School of the Arts, she found herself in one of the most notorious offices in Hollywood, a position that was reportedly terrifying at times but also placed her in close proximity to one of the most powerful and now proven to be one of the most disgusting figures in Hollywood. Leslye Headland has stated that she was never physically harmed by Harvey Weinstein and didn't personally witness the worst of his behaviour, but the source of this reliable information is Wikipedia, so make of that what you will.
Yes, I can definitely smell shite.
Nevertheless, her years at Miramax undeniably provided her with something far more valuable than money: access. For countless aspiring writers and filmmakers, breaking into the industry is a slow, demoralising grind through endless dead ends. Leslye Headland, by contrast, had a front row seat to the machinery of Hollywood power, and a Rolodex many artists would kill for. Whether it was intended or not, working for Harvey Weinstein offered Leslye Headland a launch pad that far more talented filmmakers would never receive. While it's true that the careers of many filmmakers begin with connections that are made through early jobs, rarely is it through proximity to someone later exposed as one of the industry's most prolific predators.
Just saying.
Anyway, her time working for Harvey Weinstein directly inspired her to make the 2008 stage play Assistants, a portrayal of an oppressive boss presiding over a workplace of miserable and overworked employees. Those years at Miramax clearly shaped her voice as a writer, and it showcased Leslye Headland's worldview. She knew how to turn her life into a product that Hollywood was interested in. After the somewhat success of the stage play The Assistants in 2008, and after leaving Miramax, Leslye Headland continued on from her first stage show to begin crafting her 7 Deadly Sins cycle of plays, each loosely inspired by, you'll never get this, wait for it, each of the sins.
No way!
The most famous was The Bachelorette, which premiered in 2010 and became her calling card. The Bachelorette was marketed as a darkly comedic, female-driven answer to The Hangover, but in reality it was just cruelty disguised as wit. What I mean by that is the characters weren't flawed in a way that invited empathy. They were just nasty. The whole show was just the characters firing insults at each other, and the audience was expected to laugh just because of how awful it was. When dark comedy is done well, it uncovers a truth about people or society. It's supposed to be sharp, focused, and revealing. Leslye Headland's version was more like a sledgehammer, loud, messy, and swung mostly for shock value. This tone carried through the rest of her stage work. All of her stage shows are basically just her characters being nasty to each other, but to the right people in the industry, that was enough. In an era desperate for bold female voices, her willingness to be outrageous was seen as authenticity. Studios probably never thought that she was the best writer for the job, but that didn't matter because the plan was to promote what she represented.
Not a great plan.
So a little while after the stage show of The Bachelorette came out, a couple of movie studios backed a film version, with Leslye Headland directing it herself.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
This was it. This was her big crossover moment. Her chance to show she could translate her stage work into a cinematic language. On paper, it didn't sound like a bad idea. An edgy female-led comedy adapted from a play that had already built some interest, and featuring a cast of recognisable actors. The problem, though, was the movie carried over all of the weaknesses from the play. You see, in theatre, the rawness of live performance can give even weak material a jolt of energy. However, on film, the camera lingers. It forces intimacy, and intimacy magnifies flaws. The movie is basically just 90 minutes of unlikable characters competing to be the worst person in the room.
Boring!
Even worse, the movie was all over the place tonally, and that's something that would become a trademark of Leslye Headland's filmmaking career. One scene might aim for some outrageous laugh-out-loud moment, while the next attempting to make the audience sympathise with characters that the film had been training the audience to despise from the beginning.
What, are you retarded?
In 2015, Leslye Headland managed to fail upwards and landed another filmmaking opportunity. She wrote and directed a movie called Sleeping with Other People. This movie was basically pitched as a modern day When Harry Met Sally. This should have been an opportunity for Leslye Headland to demonstrate range, to show that she was able to craft warmth and emotional connection instead of her characters just verbally attacking each other all the time. But instead it exposed a deeper problem. She didn't seem to understand how to earn sincerity. The film had moments of charm thanks to the lead actors, but those moments were repeatedly undermined by the tone of the movie being all over the place. One minute the characters are having a tender, vulnerable conversation, the next they're dropping crude gags that yank the audience right out of the moment. Romantic comedies rely on a careful balance. Humour that flows naturally from the characters so the audience invests in both the laughs and the love story. And Leslye Headland's writing treated these elements like separate things.
What an idiot! Oh, what a loser!
Both The Bachelorette and Sleeping with Other People expose Leslye Headland's biggest weakness, the inability to control a film's tone. In The Bachelorette, the tone shifts abruptly from the characters being mean-spirited to suddenly being sentimental. In Sleeping with Other People, it stumbles just as awkwardly between dirty jokes and heartfelt romance. In both cases, she had the material, charismatic actors, solid concepts, but not the narrative control to shape them into something satisfying or something that audiences will remember. You see, Leslye Headland knew how to take the job, she just didn't know how to do the job.
You know how to take the reservation, you just don't know how to hold the reservation.
Leslye Headland's work in television offered her both freedom and cover. Most notably in 2019, she co-created Russian Doll. Season 1 was a hit. It was stylish, conceptually interesting, and was energized by Natasha Lyonne's charisma. The TV series was praised for its looping narrative and offbeat humor, but crucially, much of what worked about Russian Doll came from Natasha Lyonne's writing voice and performance. Leslye Headland was in a collaborative environment, and collaboration can mask weaknesses. Season 2 stripped away that illusion. The once airtight premise was replaced by convoluted timelines and indulgent self-importance. The show's momentum collapsed under the lack of structure. The series turned into exactly the kind of storytelling Leslye Headland gravitated towards, which was concept over clarity, attitude over character arcs. The bottom line is she was competent enough in a team, but totally incompetent as a solo creative lead. And that brings us along nicely to talk about the show where she was given full creative control. The show that subsequently ruined her own career. Yes, Star Wars fans, unfortunately that means the time has come to talk about The Acolyte.
No! No! No!
For some logic-defying reason, Leslye Headland was chosen to create and run The Acolyte, a Disney Plus series set in the Star Wars universe, and to make matters worse, Disney and Lucasfilm decided to give Leslye Headland over $230 million to do it.
What the hell were you thinking?
From the get-go, the problems were obvious. Star Wars thrives on structure, moral clarity, and tonal consistency. Leslye Headland's career to that point had shown absolutely no evidence she could handle any of those things. She had no background in science fiction or fantasy, no track record with world building, and no engagement or understanding of the franchise's lore.
You're in.
Yeah.
The Acolyte's main problem was that it fundamentally misunderstood what makes Star Wars work. The franchise thrives on mythic structure, clear moral stakes, and characters whose motivations feel relatable. Leslye Headland's version threw all of that out of the window in favour of muddled plotting, indistinct characters, and storytelling where the message comes first. The twins May and Osha were so similar in the way they were written and performed that there were times where I didn't even know which twin was which.
They're the same face! Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
The dialogue throughout the series fluctuated between clumsy exposition and smug knowing quips, undermining whatever stakes the scenes might have had. By mid-season, viewership had dropped off a cliff, with audience scores plunging into the teens on Rotten Tomatoes. As ratings dropped and fans checked out, it became clear that The Acolyte had failed to connect with either casual viewers or long-time Star Wars fans, ending up as an example of what happens when politics are put ahead of storytelling. And shortly after the first season of The Acolyte concluded, Disney and Lucasfilm announced that there wouldn't be a season 2.
Oh no! Anyway, last week...
From Miramax to The Acolyte, the pattern is painfully clear. Leslye Headland's rise was powered more by the people she made connections with through Harvey Weinstein, as well as what she embodied, more so than what she was actually capable of. At each stage, the same flaws persisted. Over-reliance on shock value, the inability to balance tone, and understand story structure. Her career proves that when you elevate someone to a position just because of what they represent, rather than what they're actually capable of, well, let's just say you're signing your own death certificate. In the end, Leslye Headland's trajectory isn't really a mystery. It's just the natural conclusion of someone failing upwards until they've reached a point where even Hollywood can't pretend that it's still working. And that's the blunt truth of it.